Hello and welcome. US-India business relations are often defined, at least in the context of technology, as the problem of H-1B visas. But US-India business relations are obviously much broader than that, and we've got to focus perhaps on larger issues as well, including the fundamental political and non-economic relations between the two countries. To discuss this, I'm joined by Mukesh Aghi, head of the US-India Business Council. Thank you so much for joining us, Mukesh. So tell us, I know there is a concern about H-1B visas and whether jobs will be pulled back into America, those that have been outsourced to countries like India. If we keep that aside, would you say that things are otherwise proceeding on more or less the same track as they were in the pre-Trump world?
Well, absolutely. I think if you look at, you have two nations, two large democracies, same value systems, same objectives. And India tend to be in a position where geopolitically it's neighbor to China. And what we see is from a Trump administration perspective, probably a much more strain on that relationship with China. And India becomes a balancing factor as the US pivots more and more towards Asia. So I think geopolitically, what we are seeing is in the mid to long term, this relationship will get much stronger, broader, and deeper also.
Right. So I'm going to come back to the geopolitical in a moment, but let's look at the non-technology side of investments and interest in investing in India. How has that been progressing, and what is your prognosis for the next year or so?
Well, I think if you look at, we were in Vibrant Gujarat with 100 business leaders a month ago, and our member companies committed $27 billion investment next 18 to 24 months. And these investments are coming more in the technology space, e-commerce space, in the manufacturing space. So I think what we're seeing is a growing momentum from US companies to come and invest. And if you look at the FDI into India is up by 38%. A large chunk is coming from the US.
Right. So are you saying that there are no fears of de-globalization amongst your members, or has that not set in? Or
I don't think so, because I think if you look at most of the investments are being made in India is more for domestic market, trying to build business for domestic. If you look at Amazon, you look at Google, you look at Microsoft or IBM. Yes, you have companies like Ford, which are manufacturing, and 50% of that is being exported, but it's not being exported to the US, it's more to Africa and other geographies itself.
So let's talk about technology for a moment. So that's the concern about H-1B visas seems to be paramount. I mean, a lot of tech company CEOs that I've been interviewing all seem to feel that it's not something that they can get over that easily, while they eventually will maybe find ways around it. So should it be such a big concern from your perspective, and to how much sort of importance should we place on it?
Well, I think you have H-1B discussion, you have the leaked executive order. And what's happening is the media in India has hyped it up so much that the market cap of these companies, like a combined market cap, has dropped by almost 20,000 crores. And I think that's silly. Number one, supply and demand gap in the US on technical worker is a big gap. They have 2.4 million positions open today and they can't find workers. Every year, US requires 120,000 STEM workers. It only has 40,000 graduating. And if you look at those 40,000 graduating,
STEM is science, technology, and maths. Yeah,
that's correct. And out of the 40,000 graduating, 50% are international students. So I think the gap is getting bigger and bigger. So I think, whatever you say, Trump is a good businessman. He understands the requirement for that. The other US companies are pushing the Trump administration to make sure they can get more STEM hires. So I think you will see more of a common sense prevailing in this area, and I don't see any danger coming through the Indian companies. Yes, they may take the price up. Indian companies can deal with that, but otherwise business as usual.
Forced to pay higher salaries for onshore.
Absolutely, because those salaries were calibrated in 1998. Now we're 2017. If you adjust to the inflation also, it goes over $100,000.
Right. Okay, so if I were to ask you for your prognosis overall, I mean, technology, non-technology, in the sort of post-Trump world, what's it looking like in the 18, 19?
I think it's very positive. You have to understand there are a lot of dependency. India needs a lot of US capital. India needs a lot of investment in infrastructure. It needs technology. US needs access to Indian market. Also, US needs India to be a partner in rest of Asia Pacific, in Afghanistan and other geographies. So I think the needs and requirements of both countries geopolitically, from a defense perspective, from a business perspective, are complementary. So I don't think, as far as we're concerned, this relationship is going to go down the tube, but it's going to grow up in a substantial way.
Right. So, and you're also advocating that we should all be calm and wait for things to play out.
Absolutely. I mean, say, when you look at
which is tough.
Yeah, which is tough, but you look at the hype on executive order which leaked out. If you read the details, it talks about compliance. It doesn't talk about restriction on H-1B. And I think Indian companies should say, listen, we respect the law of the land, we will comply with whatever the guidelines are, and just move on.
Right. So your advice to Indian companies would be start maybe aligning yourself to those higher costs right away so that you don't face problems in the future?
I think so they are, and I think if you can't, then they'll offshore. I think the companies are smart enough to adjust to the changing environment from a cost perspective or technology perspective.
Right. And from your own experience, I mean, is this a new world?
I don't think so. It's a new world. It's an old world. You just have a different leader.
Right. Okay. That's a good note to end on. Thank you so much for speaking with us.
Thank you. My
Mukesh.
pleasure. Thank you.